much about your decision making involves things that are not part of your investing program? We're going to spend some time talking about all the other things, most of which are usually more important than investing this week.
Make Better Wealth Decisions, a podcast that explores how financial advisors' blind spots can harm your investments. I'm your host, John DeGuy, a portfolio manager with Design Securities in Toronto. In this podcast, we'll provide advice on how you can achieve better outcomes by maximizing investments and minimizing taxes. Let's put our thinking caps on as we consciously decide to get smarter about our money.
Most people listen to this program and talk to me about investing as their primary consideration when they're making wealth decisions. And that's fine. Wealth management is an important part of their life. And of course, investing is an important part of that. For many people, however, the management of their wealth is not that important from the perspective of investing and picking stocks or picking ETFs or picking mutual funds or specialty products offering memorandum products and what have you, and much more about planning the other elements of their life. So we can talk about this in a few ways: taxes, estate planning, including insurance, and a whole number of other things. Taxes. Let's look at taxes first. Some people think asset location is important, whether you hold your stocks or bonds in your RRSP or your investment account, your non-registered account. Some people think that's important. I personally don't. I'll tell you why. And that's because they tend to cancel each other out. Let's assume the expected return on stocks is 8% and the expected return on bonds is 4 or GICs. But the inclusion rate on stocks is 50%, but the inclusion rate on regular income is 100%. A capital gain at a 50% inclusion is 25%, or approximately at the top marginal rate of 8%, which is 2% in tax of your 8% gain. But if you've got a GIC that pays 4 and you're in the 50% bracket, you're giving half that money, 2% in tax. What you will see is that you're paying 2% in tax either way. You're either paying 2% of 8% in the capital gain of a stock position, or a 2% of 4% of a interest income in a bond or a GIC. So there's not a lot to optimize there. Things might make a difference as time goes on and as circumstances change with regard to interest rates and what have you. But in the current environment, I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. So asset location is one thing that you can think about in making better wealth decisions, but probably not going to be a big factor in 2024. It may be down the road. More importantly, though, in terms of tax planning is, what about the tax arbitrage of what your current income is and what your income will be in retirement? If you're a high income earner today, putting money into an RSP can get you a very large, over 50% tax refund. If you put $10,000 into your RSP when you're earning $200,000 a year, that brings your taxable income down to $190,000, and you're getting a refund on that other amount, and it's going to get you about half the money, $5,000 back. That's a really great thing, and that makes a lot of sense for people who are high income earners. On the other hand, if you're only earning, let's say, $40,000 a year and you're in the lowest marginal bracket, the refund for putting money into an RSP would be relatively modest. But if you put that money into a TFSA, you'd be putting in after-tax dollars. You wouldn't be getting a deduction on the way in, but you also wouldn't be paying any tax on the way out, which is, of course, what you have to do if you put money into a traditional registered plan like an RRSP. So think about, if you're going to put money into one plan or another, think about what your taxable income is now and what your taxable income is likely to be, given that tax rates change all the time, when you actually start withdrawing that money. It's an important way of looking at things in terms of being rational and making better wealth decisions. We can do the same sort of thing with insurance. A lot of people don't oftentimes think about insurance, but almost everyone who is, for instance, a homeowner or who has a dependent spouse and or dependent children should have insurance of some kind. A lot of people, when they buy a home, get their mortgage insurance through the bank that provided the mortgage. That's oftentimes not the best way to do it. If you go privately and get insurance on your own life, you can actually have something which is more useful because it will pay more if you die prematurely. Here's an example. Let's say you have a $500,000 mortgage and all you want is insurance to cover your mortgage. So you don't want any money because your spouse has a career of his or her own and your children are going to be looked after, however, and the only real liability that you're trying to control against is the $500,000 mortgage that you're taking on as a result of buying this home. Making a rational wealth management decision says, okay, you have to have $500,000 insurance to protect against the $500,000 liability should you pass away prematurely. If you buy insurance through the bank, it will pay off the mortgage, whatever the mortgage is when you die. If you buy insurance privately, it will pay off a specified dollar amount. For instance, we both started in 2024 with a $500,000 mortgage and a $500,000 insurance. And let's say 10 or 12 years go by and you're paying down the mortgage and you unfortunately pass away. If you've got a $500,000 of life insurance privately, that policy is going to pay a $500,000 to your surviving spouse. If you've got mortgage insurance through the bank for your bank, it will pay off the remainder of the mortgage, but that remainder of the mortgage will only be $250,000 or whatever it is at the time, because you have paid off half the principal of the mortgage in the interim between taking the mortgage on and passing away. As you can see, there's a real benefit of having a larger death benefit if you buy the policy privately. So that's one example of what you can do to make a better wealth decision with regard to insurance. Think about it as well if you are a business owner. You might want to have key person insurance. You might want to have a buy-sell agreement in place. There are lots of things that you might want to give real consideration to that will protect you in situations where things are uncomfortable. You pass and your business needs to go to someone, your partner passes, and we have to find a way to provide for your partner's spouse so that you can continue to run the business seamlessly, but your spouse is still paid for your former partner's interest in the business. Lots of things to think about, and you have to find a way to control for that. And you should really put things in place now. So those are a few examples of what you can do to make better wealth decisions that are critically important to many people, but don't have anything at all to do with investing.
John DeGuy is a portfolio manager with Design Securities in Toronto. The views expressed in this program are not to be construed as specific advice. It is recommended that you consult a qualified advisor before taking action. His books, The Professional Financial Advisor 4, Stand Up to the Financial Services Industry, and Bullshift are available through Amazon and in bookstores throughout Canada. You can reach John at 647-STAND-UP. That's 647-782-6387 or at jdeguy@designedsecurities.ca.